Honestly, it always looks like I'm having a yard sale when I set up for one of my live podcast karaoke events. Everything from records to comic books, VHS tapes, toys, even glassware is laid out, hoping to catch the eye of an audience member turned podcast guest. Back in November of 2022 at Loaded Question Brewery in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is a place I can't say enough great things about, an audience member named Ashley spied a glass Garfield mug from McDonald's that I brought along, and she was immediately ready to go and talk about her lifelong love of the lovable, lazy feline Garfield. What resulted was one of the funniest conversations I've had while running one of my faux yard sales. I have to give you my disclaimer about strong language now, but I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it. All right, so I am here at Loaded Question in Portsmouth, New Hampshire with Ashley. All right, so you chose, of all the things I have up here, you went to, and by the way, I still use this thing in my house. I brought it out of my cabinet. A Garfield glass.
And Odie.
And Odie.
Odie's on the back.
Odie, and this is from McDonald's, and it says 1978 United Features Syndicate Incorporated.
This is when they still had ashtrays available at McDonald's.
Yes.
So you could drink out of your Garfield mug, and also you could light up your Virginia Slim.
Do you remember McDonald's with cigarettes? Like,
of course I do. That's the only reason we went there, is so my mom could just crank heaters while we were eating like kids' meals.
It was, it's funny. I was just showing in my class today The Founder. Have you seen that movie about the founder of McDonald's, Ray Kroc?
I try to avoid those because I feel like it's just so gluttonous, and it makes me feel terrible as like a American in general. So
well, it shows how he was attracted to the original McDonald's because of the family atmosphere it provided. So it's funny that it got to a place by the 70s and 80s that people could be smoking cigarettes, and the very idea that the McDonald's brothers wanted to get away from,
right?
They brought right in, to the point that I remember. Do you remember in the 90s they started to put signs on the door with a little puffin, and it with a cigarette dangling from its mouth, and it says "No puffin."
Yeah,
like they're being cutesy with it,
like a cute little icon, so that you're like, it's harmless, like
right.
It's not related to cancer because it's just this tiny little penguin guy that was like, we're just puffin. It's cute, and it's like attractive. It's not like,
right. It's like, hey, don't. And I think now it's like unheard of to bring a cigarette anywhere. That's.
I mean, with all the knowledge we have today, you shouldn't bring a cigarette anywhere. You shouldn't smoke.
Right. That's right. Everybody, listen to us right now.
Listen.
If you're smoking, stop immediately.
Well, depending on what you're smoking, but yes, if it's tobacco, stay the hell away from it.
Right.
You don't need it.
So this glass here, why did I hear you say you had this when you were growing up?
I had so much Garfield apparel, and everything I owned was somehow Garfield related. I had a major obsession with Garfield, and I don't know what. Sorry, can I say
I'll bleep it out if Garfield and the F word do go together often.
Every time he said anything, I was like, I relate to this guy.
Have you ever seen the comic strip? Just a side note before we get into this one. Have you ever seen the comic strip online, Garfield minus Garfield?
No.
Look it up immediately.
Okay.
It's Jim Davis approved, so the creator of Garfield thinks it's funny. But what the artist does, he removes Garfield from all the strips.
Okay.
So it's just like John shows up in the frame, says something to nobody, and then walks away. Or like Odie's like eating, and then it's like, and it's hilarious because, and so Garfield in cup form, in glass form, it's not just a cup. I did a podcast last week with my son where we had a Jurassic Park plastic cup from when that movie came out.
Cute.
And we dissected that the same way we're doing right now. But this is a glass cup. It's meant to last, isn't it? It's not meant to be.
Yeah. This is, okay, I don't know exactly how you got this, collectors, like if you had to buy several Happy Meals.
Yeah.
Like how did you obtain, or how did you earn this class? Did you have to go into McDonald's and buy it?
Are you asking me or just back then?
I don't remember exactly how you...
Right, I want to say that this being a glass cup probably didn't come with a meal. Otherwise, it'd be like the worst meal ever, because it's like, here's your tiny soda or whatever.
This is what the moms were
right.
using as an ashtray.
Maybe it's not a cup at all. Maybe it's a portable ashtray.
They had to give these to moms in the 80s to put a little bit of vodka and just a tiny bit of like fountain soda.
Right. Or that orange drink that McDonald's used to. Yeah, that weird watered down mosquito juice.
I don't know what it is.
No, but I don't even think they knew what it was. Now, so the question I chose, and we're already kind of getting a stab at it, is who is the intended audience or user of this?
Of this mug?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Because it's glass, and that tells me right now it's probably not little kids, because little kids and glass cups don't go well together. But it's small. That's true.
I do think that, and I think that when I was a kid, I was an older soul, so I could relate with Garfield because he was kind of a sarcastic asshole, and he just kind of like looked into your soul a little bit. And I think like the moms that were at home smoking, like chain smoking, like they were like, I get Garfield, like he is like my soulmate.
Between the two choices, he'd always choose the more either lazier or like smart ass version of whatever it was.
Ever like if you got his humor, like you were in this like
it's like a club, and he was always second to Charlie Brown in the comic strips,
which is like so stupid because Charlie Brown was like super innocent. This was like the dark Charlie Brown. It's like
so what's he saying on it? Says I'm easy to get along with when things go my way. That's the kind of so there. Just to describe to the listening audience, this is a cup that depicts Garfield and Odie.
Like maniacal look in his eye. This poor bastard is paddling.
He's just like he's like, yep. I'm easy to get along with. I can't do a Garfield impression, but he has that. I'm easy to get along.
His voice,
I can hear it so well because it's the same guy who did the voice of Peter Venkman in the Ghostbusters cartoon. Remember that?
That was the same guy.
It was, and it's funny because that guy. So it's a weird loop-de-loop here because that guy also he provided the voice of Peter Venkman in the cartoon of the Ghostbusters. Peter Venkman was played by Bill Murray in Ghostbusters. Bill Murray does the voice of Garfield in the animated, like when they brought the live action.
The irony.
It's crazy.
Bill Murray didn't do the voice of...
Not for the cartoon. In the cartoon. No, that wasn't him. That was that guy. That was Garfield.
Oh, shit.
So it's like...
mind blown. I had no idea.
And I recently rewatched that show because my son, I've been kind of living vicariously my youth over again through him.
Right.
And a couple years ago, he got into watching the old Ghostbusters cartoons. Right. They were hardcore. Like, they were actually kind of scary in some parts. It was like almost like punk rock appearances of things. Like, looks like a Misfits album cover or something going on. Yeah. And I'm like, this was on the cartoon in the 80s, like for kids on Saturday mornings. It was not very pristine. But getting back to this thing, what does this tell us about 1978? You know. Yeah, so this glass, at least that's when the it's copyrighted as far as the images go. So I'm guessing late 70s, early 80s is when this would be available at your local McDonald's.
This mug was actually born a year before I was. If it was a 70s, it's still a product of the 70s.
Right, it is. So absolutely.
But like, in the 80s, I really appreciate. Oh yeah, you're right. 1978. I have to do some major research on how
one would get it,
because this is a treasure. I mean, truly, this is an absolute treasure. You can walk into McDonald's now and get like a nice glass mug of like a current cartoon.
Probably. They've kind of ebbed and flowed with their relationship with other characters. I feel like it used to be like part of the package, like when there wasn't a Garfield movie coming out. That's why I feel like this was like a placeholder kind of thing.
Do you think that Jim Davis was like sleeping with someone high up in the McDonald's?
Or maybe the other way around. They were like, we got to get in on this Garfield thing, and Garfield's taken off. I feel like that era was the age of Garfield.
Like, you know what?
Because doesn't
you know what's gonna make sales skyrocket? We're gonna throw Garfield on some glass.
Everything, right?
And we don't even sell glassware.
They really should have just made lasagna platters with Garfield all over it. I always picture like President James A. Garfield saying, "I love lasagna and I hate Mondays." I kind of got the voice there. I hate Mondays.
Very close.
So, why is Garfield so big in the late 70s? How does that match up with the time period? That sardonic, cynical, real sarcastic.
Sarcasm was becoming a thing. It was like, you know what? Women were just like, I'm sick of being a fucking housewife. And if I have to do it, I'm going to sit at home and chain smoke. Or take these little assholes to McDonald's and I'm going to chain smoke and drink Tab on ice while they eat their Happy Meals. And they recognized that Garfield was right there with them. He was like, you know what? I'm sick of it too. I'm a f***ing cat.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. But like,
That's what I get for supplying beer to my guests.
Yeah. Like,
I know. Everything was fine until now. Like,
I feel like house cats and housewives could just relate to each other on a level that no one else.
You know what this kind of reminds me of is, remember those greeting cards? They probably still make them, but you go to Hallmark and they would have that line of greeting cards throughout the 80s of the old woman, like, is cartoon drawing an old, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I just started laughing because all I could think of, I see the woman with the glasses and like the hair
and the cigarette,
and I think they did like a modern take on it where she sat on the dog and it was squeezed in between her butt cheeks and she was like, "Where's the dog?"
Yeah, stuff like
something.
Like they, or she was just kind of like kind of gray old lady and always had an angry little face on cartoon.
Yeah.
And she's like, and would just have sayings on it. Like, it would just be like, you know, it's a Tuesday when it's, you know, and it was like clear the audience is for like that age group you're talking about, you know, like middle-aged women or...
She had that one, it was just one line of like curly hair that went across, like a line.
Yes.
And she had on just glasses.
Right. Or were they sunglasses or were they...
They were regular glasses, but no eyeball.
Right.
Like she just had on like...
And she was sitting on a bench
you couldn't see her eyes. It was just eyeglasses.
And I feel like her and Garfield would have appeared on cards right next to each other at Hallmark.
So. She was in like some kind of muumuu or house dress.
Yeah.
Her lines were always like quick, like it wasn't. It was something maybe before her time that was kind of like sarcasm.
It was like, sorry, I forgot your birthday, but I didn't want to think about it. Or,
but I also hate you.
Which I'm gonna write that one down. Yeah, I also hate. Like you open up the cards, it's like I also hate you.
Like, sorry, I'm late. I didn't want to be here.
Right.
Just like put it out there. I'm tired of like dancing around the real truth.
Yeah, and that's that much more direct, and that's what because you mentioned before, like in the pantheon or the hierarchy of comic strips, Peanuts was always first because it was around forever, and it's like, you know, so saccharine sweet, and it was just kind of. And then Garfield kind of made his way up to the top. I would probably guess around the same time period.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's going to dethrone Charlie Brown. Like, he's, you know, the biggest bald idiot that you'll ever have. And I got Snoopy up there, too. And
I mean, no offense to Snoopy, but how much of, like, a happy-go-lucky little, what kind of a dog?
Beagle.
A beagle. Like, we're tired. Beagles are cute and happy, but they're not real. Like, they don't get into the nitty-gritty of life. Like, they're just like Garfield was like, I'm
Well, and isn't that funny? Dog, cat. Like that. Because, like, in this, the dog is a buffoon. Like, Garfield is smart.
Life, my friend.
Garfield
if
always...
you're a dog person, you're just oblivious. If you're a cat person, you get it. Like, you're just like, everything.
Yeah. I didn't grow up with animals, but in the last 20 years or so, I've become an animal owner. My wife is a huge animal lover, and it's like, so all animals. We have like a zoo at home. We don't have a farm. It's borderline farm. We have 2 dogs. We have 1 cat. We used to have more. We foster animals. Right now we're fostering a guinea pig. We have a bunny that has his own porch. And it's like...
Can you tell me the purpose of a guinea pig?
They are adorable, but what's the purpose of any life, you know? But you're never going to make a cartoon cup out of a guinea pig, right? So what I was thinking, because we were at a shelter the other day to pick up the guinea pig, and there was a cat in the window. It was in his little cubby hanging out. And I'm like, I love cats. Like, I just think they're the best because... Like a dog, if it's looking at you, it wants to get your attention all the time.
Yeah,
a cat could care less. It was just like, yep, I'm here. And I've always loved about all the cats we've ever owned. They just like, I feel like honored when they choose to lay on me.
Yes.
I'm like, oh wow, okay, I've been chosen. Yeah. And that's kind of like Jim Davis gets cats, and he does Garfield exactly how you imagine a cat to be.
I don't know the backstory on Jim Davis, but I'm assuming that he's got a ginger cat, which I don't know, like ginger cats are a special breed. I don't know exactly what, it doesn't matter the type of cat, but if it's a ginger cat, they are a special type of asshole. We have two of them. One of them is just like, I'm his person, but pretty much to everyone else, he's like, F off.
Yeah.
I don't care about you, and I'll prove it to you.
Yeah.
Because I'll just screw you.
He'll find every way possible to do that.
And the other one's just kind of like got his own little cute attitude, but he's like a ginger, so he's like, I don't need anything or anybody. I just need some snacks. But he's just like, they have a special kind of attitude that's like, humans are just the worst. They are here simply to clean up my own shit. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
They're pretty clean animals, but when they knock something over, they're just like.
It's also like a slightly abusive relationship. It's like, Toons has just acknowledged me like a person. That's our cat's name, Toons.
Oh, that's a great name.
And then, but then he's a dick to us, and we're like, he's just he's mad. We have to cater to him, and but we feel honored when he chooses to acknowledge us. Like, it's an abusive relationship.
So that's, I think, a lot to do with why Garfield, because Garfield's written pretty honestly, pretty accurately for
I do
a 3-frame strip every day and a slightly longer one.
Arbuckle is an abused. He is like an abused housewife. Where in that he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Garfield.
Oh, I saw this great clip on YouTube that somebody made. It was if Garfield were real. And it was John brings his cat to the vet, and he's like, he eats lasagna every day. And they're like, you shouldn't feed your cat dairy. And he's like, oh, it's okay. They're like, this cat is 100 pounds overweight. He's like, but it doesn't, because this became popular without a movie. Garfield didn't have a movie in the 70s. The only cartoon I really know about is they eventually did a Garfield and Friends cartoon later in the 80s, but it rode on the wave of popularity due to it was in every newspaper in America and so McDonald's is like, all right, let's see what we can do with this. Let's sell this cup to an audience. They have they get Garfield at their front door every day. So I think if nothing else, this tells us that newspapers were still in high distribution in 1978 because where else would people get their dose of Garfield? I wonder if he had been made into a Macy's Thanksgiving Day balloon yet to make this timely, because that's, even when you see Garfield, I don't know if they still use them, but whenever you see Garfield coming down.
I don't think he's still a thing. I know that in the 80s, I used to look forward to the Sunday paper coming out just so I could see the Garfield strip, and I was like, what's this crazy dick gonna say this week? I didn't know that's what I was thinking, but I was like, this guy,
he knows.
It. And he's funny because he's sarcastic. He's kind of a jerk, and he hates humans, which I can, we're all just kind of abused housewives in that we're like, what's Garfield gonna say? He hates humans so much. But yeah, I used to look forward to it because it was he always pushed the boundaries a little bit in that, how can this cat be such a jerk to a human?
He'll find a way.
He'll find a way. But yeah, that was in the 80s, I totally look forward to that. I don't really remember watching, is he still a character in the Macy's Day?
I think he is. I mean, I don't think, unless a big hole ended up in him, he blew all over the place, would he ever go away. But I think Garfield is here to stay. I don't think he's going anywhere soon. And I think we nailed it pretty well who the audience was. And I thank you so much for being the first person tonight to talk to me. Thanks a lot.
So much.
It was wonderful. Eric. It is Eric.
Okay.
And
it's
fine.
Figuring out history with the clues that pop culture artifacts give us is part of the fun of the EPS podcast, especially the live version. So I apologize if you've been yelling at the speaker. The fact that Garfield went national in 1978. And maybe even that the mugs were actually from the 80s and not necessarily 1978, just because the copyright on the glass said so. but those don't diminish what the analysis proves. And that is, titles and characters like Garfield don't leap from one place to another, like from funny pages to fast food collectible glassware, unless there is some adoration coming from the general public. Garfield represents the sardonic attitudes of the culture that produced him and allowed him to climb the comic page ladder to above the fold fairly early on in his career. If you've enjoyed listening to this short episode of the Everything is a Primary Source podcast, consider supporting the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/EPSpodcast or a paid subscriber to epspodcast.substack.com. And if you're interested in hosting an EPS Podcast live podcast karaoke event, email me at epspodcasthost@gmail.com. By the way, with all the virtual meeting technology at our disposal these days, these events do not need to be in person. Tune in next time to the EPS Podcast, where everything, including Garfield collectible mugs, are primary sources.